So, very good day to all viewers and listeners. Today is 23rd of October 2025. And Lara, we are having the Asian Summit just a few days from now.
Yep.
And, we kind of have, Prime Minister sort of have released kind of preview who will be coming. But there is one major guest, right? President Trump of America. And I think it is of interest for us in this show because ever since he won the election, and we did many episodes, especially on trade war, on tariff. But at the end of the day, we are always coming back to Malaysia, right? What is the interest for our nations? And one of the things, I'm not sure, do you still feel like there is a very strong Trump derangement syndrome all around?
Well, I guess it's a bit of a mixed feeling, especially once they have seen the effects of how he has been such a great advocate for, basically peacemaking. So I think some people are like less apprehensive of him. I do think there is
There's a bit of shift.
Yeah, I think so. But nonetheless, obviously people are still trying to find fault with him. And obviously, I think with the rise of anti-Semitism and like a lot of push about, hey, if you support Israel, then you're supporting Zionism. So I guess with that, to a certain effect, people are still a bit wary of Trump. But other than that, I do feel like there is a bit of shift because it's about like making the economy stronger again and also like really, I think he's presenting to the world the model of like protecting the borders of your own nation.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, that there is a shift. I also feel that, and the one thing I would say is, even though we cover so much of Trump, we are not for Trump, we are not for what America is doing, but we just feel like there is something that he's doing that maybe we can learn here in Malaysia. Because look, we have followed the globalist model, we have followed all the different economic model, but we are still struggling, we are still finding it very hard. You try to adopt the China model, very centralized economy, but it's like you kill creativity, you kill capitalism. But if you allow too free of a market, a small player like Malaysia cannot afford to have truly free economy. So these are the things that I feel he is doing, certain things that maybe we can learn. So some of the things that so we want to talk about three things today, right? Of course, the first one, we want to talk about the whole trade and tariff, which we cover many episodes. So in fact, if you're all interested, you can, just the whole background on tariff and dealing with some of the myths. Remember, one of the earliest myths about tariff is really how it will cause inflation. So, after so many months, 6, 7, 8 months now, that has been fully debunked. And in fact, Harvard have conducted a very comprehensive study on price indexing. And a few things have gone up, and those have nothing to do with tariff. So it's all very interesting, but we're not going to talk too much on that. Then, of course, we want to talk about the interest of Malaysia. And finally, the last point, which we started off, is, what does President Trump brings to the world? Because I think he does offer certain things that we can learn. So let's talk about the first thing first, which is the whole trade realignment. And in fact, I think today, China confirmed that they will be having trade talk with USA in Kuala Lumpur. So I think it's Vice Premier, I can't remember his name. I think it's Mr. He. I think he or her. I don't know how you probably her, right? For Chinese surname. And they'll be meeting. Basen will be here. The trade representative will be here. So it's very high level kind of talk. Very interesting. They chose Kuala Lumpur to be. They had a meeting in London. They have a meeting in Switzerland, and finally Malaysia. We are on the verge of being a historic place, right? But remember, when we talk about the whole tariff thing, we came from a very different perspective, right? Because the whole US Trade Office, they produced a report, and there's a very comprehensive report on Malaysia about how we are actually having a very close economy. Like we have very high our own tariff on cars, on agricultural products. Then of course we have like I think one of the things they mentioned is the halal certification issue, and of course then you talk about shareholding, compulsory local or Bumi shareholding, which is basically like a quota system, a DEI. And we kind of come from that perspective and say, look, if we really want to move on in Malaysia, I mean, this issue has been around since the Reid Commission, right? You know, when the formation of Malaya, remember Tunku Abdul Rahman kept negotiating with Lord Reid, and Reid is just like, look, you can't place a people group as having a perpetual advantage. And I remember Tunku at that time was saying 20 years, and then we have May 13, then we have NEP, another 30 years. But we have seen the effect, right? It's really not helping, and a lot of Malay are also starting to realize that this doesn't help them.
Yeah, I think there is that sort of awareness. Still, the system in Malaysia, I think basically because since the founding of Malaysia, with that affirmative action in mind, it has been very, very difficult for us to break out of that mold. It's almost like you are confined to a certain way of operation, and it's like you're forever like there's that sort of stigma that if you're of certain race, you can't break out of that like poverty cycle. I think that itself has to be addressed from education level, because I mean, if we are constantly being told that, hey, you're just like there, I mean, you can never compete with, let's say, Chinese in the arenas of business, then I think the whole mentality to start off with, it's like it's not even self-starting in the first place.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, of course, we can go back to the British roots, how their modus operandi, divide and conquer, let Chinese do the business, let Indian have the plantations, the Malay have the agricultural, fishery and things like that. But that's like 60, 70, 80 years, and why are we still being confined by the past prototype? So that's one of the things. And when we think about quota and DEI, in fact, if you say because you are of a certain race, you need certain assistance, you need certain quota, that's actually the most racist thing a person can do, because people are basically saying because of your race, you are incompetent or you are incapable.
I guess that's very difficult to brain it.
Yeah, but I really feel like, I can see more and more, even indigenous, even Malay, they want to break out. And now, it's like, does the government have the will to do it? And in fact, when I think about this issue, I sort of also think very recently, I kind of start to have a bit of mindset, from the Sarawak point of view, both of us, we are here for a long time already. We are very aware of what's happening in East Malaysia. I mean, we are generally supportive, but we are not the hardcore kind of, like those really want a cessation from Malaysia, because we believe the Malaysian project has not ended. But I've been thinking that, it's like when people wanted more rights, even Sabah election right now, they're talking about 40% of certain fees due to them. And it's really, if you do certain things, it has to benefit everyone. And it has to come from, I mean, last episode we talked about a true multicultural Malaysia, which has been lacking more and more. So when I think about what the US Trade Office report exposed, in a way, it's an opportunity for us to confront with this. Either we change and be competitive in ASEAN, or we'll be taken over by, I mean, now it's like Thailand has certain industry better than us, Indonesia has certain industry better than us. Soon, it'll be Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. Can you imagine? Or Myanmar, Myanmar is now like the sick man of ASEAN, but imagine Myanmar also overtaken us. So I felt like we have a bit of window, but people have to be aware that you cannot just trust the government, but you have to make them accountable.
Yep.
So all the things we've been talking about, big government, globalism, and protectionism, which is, I mean, just one other point which I find it really, really ironic with the trade war is how a lot of people are saying, we are not for trade protectionism, we are for free trade, but every of their response to Trump's tariff actually revealed that they are the one actually wanting a very narrow kind of trade. And yeah, but it's very funny. But but I was just thinking about tariff, just reviewing some of the episodes. And one of the funniest thing, which I think a lot of people in Malaysia, and these are obviously not business people, because when the whole tariff came, you see some of the comments on netizen, they say, oh, then let's stop doing business with America. Let's stop selling things to them. And the more you look at this kind of statement, the more ridiculous you'll find, because it's like the whole ASEAN with India, with China, everyone actually are in the same boat. Everyone is trying to sell their resources, sell their manufactured product. And America is the biggest consumer by far, then EU. If you don't want to sell to US, who is going to buy your stuff? You're going to start killing each other. And remember, in the early days, Vietnam and Malaysia already kind of imposed anti-steel dumping from China.
Yep.
So just, I think one of the point we need to highlight to people, even as Trump is coming here, you see a bit of Trump derangement again. People say, oh, let's not deal with them. But it's just impossible. The American footprint on the world's economy is, if you say in the next 100 years, after 100 years, you don't want to do it, you start to do some planning to kind of be independent from world economy. Maybe you can do it. But at the moment, I think in our generation, we will not see that kind of separation. Not anywhere close. But anyway, I think we can move on to the next point, which is the interest of Malaysia. And one of the things recently, I know it has been quite a while already, Trump's speech in United Nations more than 1 month, actually not even that old, 1 month ago. But he was just kind of like, I kind of read the report, but I never really listened. But he is basically shaking the whole globalist foundation and just say, why are you throwing away energy independence? Why are you doing net carbon? All these kind of things. Why are you not doing actual peacekeeping and things like that? But then when you look at his speech, many MAGA people kind of frame the speech as one of the greatest foreign policy speech as far as their ideology is concerned, which is really for the people. And it kind of made me think, right, even for us here in Malaysia, at the end of the day, we do want priority for Malaysia, right? It's like, hey, you don't want to be, say, we want to be champion for ASEAN, but Malaysia first, and then other country. I think that's where we want. And this is what Prime Minister said yesterday, 22nd of October, and I quote, Malaysia will continue to strengthen trade and investment ties with partner countries, particularly in semiconductor, artificial intelligence, digital and energy sectors, without compromising national interests. End of quote. And I think we can fully agree with this sentiment, right? But of course, you know that like Prime Minister is trying to basically like try to announce to everyone, look, we are not compromising, we are not being forced to take a deal with America and things. I think he's trying to give that kind of impression, right?
Yeah.
But fundamentally, do you have any objection to what he was saying?
No, I think that's totally a great thing. As in, we're fully supportive because, if you're for the benefit of Malaysian, why not? We will say, go all the way out. But the thing is, I guess sometimes it's not that we tend to do that. It's just that sometimes we do need to read between the lines, especially, knowing the history of how we have been reacting towards. I guess if you have been pandering for such a long time, it's difficult to make a stand and having to really say that, hey, I'm all in for Malaysians' interests. So I guess that, again, like what you have said, what you do will basically reveal what has been your intention all along.
Yeah, of course, we look at ASEAN now, and many nations are sort of sandwiched between two great superpower, China and America. And this is a known issue all around the world. It's like every nation, especially smaller nation like Malaysia, have to navigate because we kind of rely on both for trade and things like that. But of course, one of the main difference between Prime Minister's style and like someone like Trump will be, Trump is always for bilateral. And even this time, very interesting, I will be very interested to see if there's any bilateral kind of discussion and deal. You're seeing many times already, like Trump with UK recently, with Prime Minister of Australia. They announced the nuclear submarine deal. They announced the rare earth deal, which was a great deal for both sides. Then, of course, you have Canada who couldn't reach a deal. You have EU who could reach a deal. And now we have a new first female prime minister of Japan. And everyone is saying that, her hero was Margaret Thatcher. And that's why when you look at the mainstream media, if they are like, oh no, this is not good, then you know that this is probably someone who is probably ideologically and economically conservative, stop spending, have stronger defense. So those kind of things. But just coming back to the style, Prime Minister Anwar seems to have a more globalist kind of approach, So just looking at the agenda, what they're doing in ASEAN Summit, they have all kind of declaration. And I think there will be a signing ceremony, peace deal between Thailand and Cambodia.
Yep.
But it's like, it's like, we talk about, when you have friends and then in uni and then you go to working life and then once in a while people want to catch up, right? So then you have different kind of gathering, right? Some will be like, they call every Tom, Dick and Harry, and then you go to the mama and suddenly there are like 50 people and half of them you don't know. So that's like the globalist approach. Everyone come and very little is achieved. But then you could have a more bilateral kind of thing and someone you're really close with and you want to develop a relationship, you go there. It's just 3 or 4 people really concerned about your well-being. And I just look at Trump's style. He is really more bilateral and is very customized to the need. Of course, I mean, he says all the right thing before it comes to a nation. Even like Malaysia, he still say, oh, it's a great nation. We can have a great deal, that kind of thing. But of course, even if Malaysia doesn't have an actual like earth-shattering deal, if we facilitate like US and China in Kuala Lumpur, I think Prime Minister will take it as a win.
Yep.
So, but anyway, just some of my thoughts about this. But what other things you think about, in terms of, the interest of Malaysia? How can we safeguard? I mean, it's like Prime Minister said it a few times. I think trying to defend like halal certification, trying to defend Malaysia's, I mean, for lack of a better word, activism on Palestine-Gaza issue.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading a bit about it. And I mean, you have all the superpowers. I mean, even like Qatar, Turkey.
I mean, they are concerned and related party because their proximity is near. I mean, what is Malaysia's proximity to Gaza?
Far.
Yeah, almost none. I mean, Indonesia, you can still argue, well, the largest Muslim population in the world. So, but still, I mean, it's the sovereign right of each country to decide what they want to do, right?
Yeah, I guess the whole thing about this whole conflict, I mean, I know we're kind of like sidetracked a little bit, but if you really think about it, it's the sort of mentality that we are like so fixated with, hey, let's have like 2-state union. I think we're kind of like so used to being echo chamber of what the globalist is shouting. And we don't realize that actually history shows that, hey, I mean, Hamas was given a de facto rulership, governorship, and basically they were governing the whole Gaza since 2005. And
that's two-state solution.
Exactly. But if you really think about it, hey, I mean, Israel relocate all the citizens, including a grave of the deceased. And basically, hey,
out from Gaza.
Exactly, and you're the only one that is there to govern the whole of Gaza Strip. And here we have Malaysia. I mean, we can't even like. I guess the national interest is not being protected. So if you look at it that way, I think this would be like a great opportunity where Malaysia could really rise up to the expectation of Malaysians to really, hey, I mean, what's a win-win situation for, I mean, both Malaysia and US, and even for regionally because I mean, we are the ASEAN chairmanship this year. So I think it's a great opportunity to basically facilitate a viable economic bloc in this region.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I was just putting here, talking about ASEAN as a bloc, is from a foundation perspective, it is a very weak bloc because mainly because all the nations, except for Singapore, all the other nations are mainly competing against each other. You think about Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, very, very similar. You know, we have natural resources, and then we have the net. Then we take the primary resources and do manufacturing. So all our products we are selling to similar kind of buyers. So in a way, and that's what they were saying about European Union, that in the past, before you had the European Union, you know, you can say, I want to have design, you know, German design is the best, but well, if they're too expensive, I mean, we can tolerate the Italian, even though they are not very punctual and things like that, you know. So you have competition, but after European Union, they find that competitive edge is gone. So very similar also with ASEAN, that if everyone wants to do the same thing, and it kind of reminded me of a couple of weeks, not a couple of months ago, I think there was a Shanghai convention, and President Xi was giving a keynote speech, and he was actually like handamming all the regional states, you know, because he said, look, why are you all doing the same business? Why is everyone doing AI? Why is everyone doing EV? Basically, he's complaining that all the districts and states are cannibalizing each other. So kind of like what's happening here with ASEAN. So I mean, it won't be easy, but I think the trade war actually exposed the weakness even more. But on the other hand, you know, if people can just find what is the common interest, you know, do we like ASEAN, everyone is kind of worried about China's intrusion. You know, people don't want, you know, extremism to happen in ASEAN and things like that. So there are some common things that I feel like Prime Minister should go for instead of. I know it may sound a bit unfair, you know, but really, more and more people in Malaysia are finding that the Palestine issue is a niche issue, and we know why he's doing that, because ever since Iran Revolution, look at that's a game UMNO plays. You know, you create a siege mentality against race and religion, but then the thing is, you can't out siege past in this issue, you know. So remember, I think maybe last year we did one episode when Bridget Welsh wrote an article say the more Prime Minister tries to pander to the Malay, the more he is rejected.
Yep.
But I don't know. I mean, something may shift. I mean, if the whole Sabah thing kind of move away from supporting Madani and things like that, maybe something will click and he may just suddenly wake up. But I think this is a great time for us to pivot into the last point, because since we talk about the last point is really a more general kind of discussion. What does President Trump brings to, I mean, he's coming to Asian Summit, so to Malaysia, but also generally the world, because I think we can look at the Hamas deal, for example. I think one of the things we kind of mentioned privately, but also occasionally in group, is when I think even in Parliament, there was one time, is it MP from Sabah or Sarawak, I can't remember, they were asking, you know, are we treating Hamas as a terrorist organization? But in general, when people don't want to, when they are like very, very passionate about the Palestine issue, I mean, you hear some people just say, look, October 7 never happened. But the fact that the deal was signed in Egypt, Hamas actually have to acknowledge that it happened. So as a matter of fact, even Hamas acknowledge it happened. So I think it's just ridiculous for people to say it doesn't happen. Just like how people will deny certain historical event. But now the participant of both events, Hamas and Israel, both acknowledge something happened and they agree to do exchange of prisoner and things like that. But I mean, just look at this one issue, and if we go back during his first term, the Abraham Accord, he did something really, really unconventional, which the past president had not done. Obama tried to do something different, pandering to Iran, pandering to Hamas. It didn't work. But what Trump did, totally unconventional. He isolated Palestine, and he said, look, we're not going to deal with them because they are nobody. So I'm just going to say, look, Bahrain, Emirates, do you want to have a direct deal with Israel? And in fact, Abraham Accord went with such success that there was a lot of rumor that Saudi Arab wanted to join. And that was when October 7 happened. So a lot of people say that was to kill the momentum because suddenly peace was coming to Middle East. So this is just one example how Trump used common sense to solve problem. But what do you think about him coming to Malaysia? Like to ASEAN. Like what kind of point, what kind of deal, what kind of perspective you think he can? Just certain things that cause people to be able to say, hey, maybe we can adopt something that this supposedly crazy person is trying to show the world.
Yeah, I think especially one key point about him is that he is not a warmonger. I think people need to realize that, hey, actually a lot of globalist agenda is all about fear-mongering, war-mongering, and basically it only enrich a certain group of people. And you also really, from this whole October 7th incident, you see that, hey, actually it's the top leadership of Hamas, the terrorist group itself, that is actually benefiting from all this supposed aid that is being given to them. So I think there is like a lot of, I guess, like key lessons that we could learn from this, because Malaysia is also very high on the corruption index. So if you compare it, obviously we're not like sinking so low to a terrorist organization, but the thing is, it's similar root issue of the poverty not being addressed, but you also have like greed that is uncontrolled. So hence, like, it's a lot of wastages in the nation, and it's also a lot of corruption in the nation. But what Trump is doing is basically, we're not going to tolerate all this nonsense, and hey, let's see how we can restore the economy. The calamity that has been imposed on economic region. So I guess what he's doing is basically, I'm all about ushering a golden age for America. So I think with that in mind, we could actually look at the model of how he has been so successful in not just protecting the interests of the nation. He's also basically like giving a model to all the other nations. Hey, if we work together and if we could strike a win-win deal, basically your nation benefit and my nation benefits, and what is there not to agree to? I think people kind of like have to get past that, like, hey, if I'm supporting you, that means I'm pandering. I think people need to like look beyond that and have a bit of bigger vision to just, hey, maybe there's a better deal out of this whole thing. Hey, if we don't have too much bureaucratic processes, even with halal certification, if we could just like, hey, there is an international standard, so why should we impose a higher standard? And you could actually cause like a simpler entry level for a lot of the players in Malaysia as well. And maybe it might cause the whole nation to flourish even further.
Yeah, that's one of the things we always kind of emphasize, that we want freedom, we want the ability to pursue happiness, and happiness, of course, linked with wealth, ability to generate wealth. And of course, America's model of small government, which over the last 67, 80 years they've become so bloated. But you can see Trump trying to address certain things which may or may not be doable in Malaysia, like because of the shutdown now, they are basically trimming down civil service. Of course, a lot of people say, oh, it cannot be done, but why can't it be done? Remember a few years ago, Greece has this civil servant crisis, but even after many years of hardship, finally they bring it down to a certain level. And I think we need to do that if we want to cut. Now, of course, to Prime Minister's credit, I think he has been, with the recently announced budget, he did try to bring down spending a bit, but it's not easy because, when you're used to free gravy, suddenly it's a no more sauce. It's going to be very, very hard, right? Then the other thing which it's going to be very difficult for a lot of people program with progressive or groupthink. We explore so much of that during COVID. And that's why I encourage all our viewers, listeners, if you can go and listen to Trump's speech to United Nations 23rd of September 2025. And he basically talked about the climate warrior, he talked about ESG, he talked about net carbon, basically all the things that you can't, it's not doable, basically. I'll say this, right? A lot of people will be like, it's democracy, we can do whatever we want with climate, fine. But I think what most people don't understand is that all this ESG, climate, net carbon, it costs money. Who is going to pay for the money?
Yep.
So when you want to remove subsidy from petroleum, when people are having just daily, very hard month to month struggling, and then you want to take a large portion to go for all this climate initiative. Just one good example would be EV, right? I mean, so many people are supporting EV, but I think not many people know that EV is highly subsidized. Even in China, it's extremely highly subsidized. Now they say there's 100 plus EV company, and it may just go down to less than 5 in 3 or 4 years' time. So, I mean, big government, every time you need to subsidize an economy, you know that it's not going to end well, because that's basically the basis of socialism, right? So some of these things, I just hope people can, like you say, maybe it's a better option. Just consider that. But of course, the emotion, the unhappiness, and it's not helped by the fact that all the mainstream media are against him. And so many people are influenced by mainstream media. So, but yeah, I mean, if something really happened this weekend and caused people to shift, and yeah, you never know. People will be like, hey, maybe Trump is, I think in the United Nations speech, he said something to this effect: I am right about everything. And this is the kind of statement that triggers a lot of people. But he is, I would say he's mostly correct. I mean, compared to Biden. I mean, we don't talk about other nations because just him and Biden, vis-a-vis, he is basically right about everything compared to Biden. Now, of course, his other relationship with other nations, I think that's a separate matter. But anyway, what other things? I think we kind of can come to a conclusion already for today's show. So maybe just one or two things you are looking forward to in the Asian Summit, perhaps?
Well, I mean, hopefully we can get to see the beast. I mean, it's vain.
I mean, all the roads are closed though.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess it's really a great atmosphere if you really think about it. And because there are so many like prestigious people that are coming here to this nation, and it really provides that sort of atmosphere for, I guess, like economy betterment. I think that is something that I'm hopeful to see out of this whole convention. And basically because, I mean, and also allowing Malaysia to be presented as a neutral place where, I mean, in the past, if you think about neutrality, people will be thinking about Switzerland. Why not Malaysia be that place for this sort of peace treaty, or even basically, I wouldn't say a truce, but for people to come to a consensus in terms of very high level policy, foreign policies that is being struck between nations. And I think that could be something that Malaysia could be well known of, because I mean, if we can't be known as like a safe investment haven, at least we could be known as a place where people think that, hey, Malaysia is being very neutral, and we could choose this place because of the neutrality that it has demonstrated. And it takes a lot of humility, I think, to be able to present that sort of neutrality and cause people to just like, basically, I mean, choose Malaysia over Switzerland, for instance.
I think that's a really excellent point, because President Xi came right earlier this year, and now you have Trump coming. Of course, there are many other major leaders. Modi will join remotely. I think the new Prime Minister of Japan may come, etc., etc. But then the other thing, of course, is like, well, if really China and US strike a deal in Kuala Lumpur, a trade deal, then like the previous two discussions are in Switzerland, neutral country, and London, world financial capital, then Malaysia. So that will really do something to build our reputation as a neutral place. But
and also I guess Malaysia being a smaller player, you don't have to be so concerned about offending either party.
Yeah, we don't have so much conflict of interest, But of course, the one issue which I feel is causing us not to be so neutral is really the Palestine issue. And remember when the deal was struck and Prime Minister had to explain in Parliament why Malaysia was not invited to Egypt, because he said, well, we don't agree with all the 20 points Trump put forward. But I really felt there was maybe not expressly, but from time to time, different portion and arm of the government have sort of legitimized Hamas. And I think the maximum we could go would be supporting the Palestinian cause, but there should be disavowalment of Hamas, which I think we failed to do. And I think if we cannot get this kind of simple principle right, we cannot be we cannot be a nation of consequence, because then you are too small, you are too niche. So I don't know. One of the things I hope will be, Prime Minister kept saying he will bring out the whole issue, but in Malaysia will be like, okay, we accept the framework of the Egypt deal, which includes the disarming of Hamas. Then I think Malaysia will move to that level, out from the niche and becoming mainstream. I mean, mainstream in the sense that we can really be neutral already. So I felt this opportunity. I don't know if Prime Minister would take the offer, because this is a highly personal issue for him also. But that is what I'm hoping to see.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, if he could just chuck aside this whole personal interest and basically just come to a bigger heart of being
you don't even have to do much.
Leader. Yeah.
You just have to say, look, I agree with the framework of the Egypt deal. That's it. That's enough. And that will just lift the fort, and you can still give all the humanitarian help. You want to send peacekeeping soldier to Gaza, all those you can do, but you shouldn't support a terrorist organization. Well, that will be interesting. So, but anyway, I think we we intended a shorter recording, but it kind of went a little bit overboard.
Yep.
But it's still just 3 points, right? So anyway, we will see what happens in the coming week, and we'll come back the week after and hopefully do some report and have some good news to announce.
Yeah.
Until next time, bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.